Hi kids. So here we are, day 4, part 2 of the video series of me trying to resuscitate the 2004 Honda Odyssey, putting a new head on. And it occurs to me that if I do not take this opportunity with the head off and all that room available to replace my blown out rear motor mount, then I'm just an idiot. Idiot, that's a good southern word, look it up, idiot. With this head off, the only tricky part of this job is breaking this bolt loose. Well, after trying the old hook wrench method, you know, putting a wrench on here and then hooking a wrench onto it to pull all this loose, that kind of works, but I don't get enough room to swing anything. So what I'm going to do is take this hose off, and I think that'll give me enough room out here, maybe with a breaker bar and whatnot. Broke it loose, pull it off. Now I'm using a ratchet with a wrench hooked on it. If I can ever, yeah, I'm getting like 1/8 of a turn out of this stuff. All right, it started. Now, if you don't have the head off the car, something that I've seen the YouTubers do is take the driver's side wheel off and come in with a bunch of extensions and an impact and grab that. Yeah, jacking the motor up a little bit really helps. And if you jack the motor up, I put a great big piece of like a 2x10 on top of my jack so that I'm not punching a hole through my oil pan, because that would suck and I would be lame. Alright, I have to get this ratcheting box end wrench to get that last one. That's a 14mm. There's really only 2 bolts that are the problem, and that's this big long bolt here and that bottom bolt. There's one bolt in the bottom that's a real pain in the butt. What the hell is that thing? Oh wow, that's part of the side of this thing. Yeah. Alright, so now what do I do here? There's the centerpiece of the motor mount. Yay. Well, I guess I could say I got part of it out. But, okay, I gotta jack the motor back up because the motor is in my way. It's clearly not gonna come out that way. It's not gonna come out that way. So here's the thing, here's the trick, guys. This may be worth watching this video over if you plan on changing this motor mount. It's got to come up and then like corkscrew around this other side of the mount. Look at that. So I think once you know that trick, this job gets easier. Like that. Yeah, see there? Yeah, that's the trick. Hopefully I won't have to file it down any. Actually gonna jack it up to get that top pain in the butt bolt to go in. Maybe this will help one of you guys take care of this particular issue. All right, that bolt is started. Now before I go crazy tightening it up, I want to get those bottom bolts in and make sure they're all good, because this is an aftermarket mount, and if you guys follow my videos, you've seen that sometimes the aftermarket parts aren't all that accurate. There was one bolt, taking this out, that was a pain because I can't get my amazing impact on it. So that's the one we're going to start with, putting it back together, because it's hard to get to with any other tool. These are the new Chinese-made Craftsman wrenches. All right. It fits in there very nicely. All these bottom bolts are 14mm. It's starting to snug up, so we're going to switch over. Start them by hand. Screw them in a good long way, several turns by hand. Don't cross thread these, because because that casting is aluminum, and if you cross thread it, you'll ruin it, and you'll get to do this all over again. This mount is the $75 one from AutoZone. I guess it's a Duralast or something. You know, AutoZone. We are started, so let's do a little zapping. Switch back to the old reliable Ingersoll ram. Exact torque specs, you know. So that's the rear motor mount installed. It's the end of day 4 because, well, it's just miserable out here. My wife calls this kind of weather drizzerable, and she's right. So that's what the motor mount looked like. I don't think it was in good shape. The next thing to do is to start reassembly. And that's going to start by prepping the head. Hi kids. What is it, day 5 now? Just finished setting the valves. This is what you need. Set of feeler gauges, 10mm screwdriver. They sell you fancy tools to do this. They're cool if you can afford them. You don't need to buy them necessarily. Now it's time to start reinstalling things. Brand new Velcro gasket, brand new head bolts. Here we go, kids. If you're wondering where to get the tolerances, they're right there, see? Tells you what your valve lash ought to be. That's what feeler gauge you should be checking them with. And it's time to clean this up and get installing. Time to put this mother back together. Just out of curiosity, if you're wondering what a brand new head should look like, that's what your valves should look like. Cleaning the surface on this, make sure there's no oil or anything on it before I made it to the gasket. I hope the weather holds. It's not supposed to rain today. I was really hoping to get this finished. There's some little inserts that are supposed to be in these 2 holes. They're not there. They're in the old head, so. I want to make sure that things like these little ports have the plugs in the right places, because this head is designed to be used on a number of Honda products and Acura products. Alright, there's our gasket. It seems to be right. Now before I start buttoning anything up, got to inspect things, make sure the head is all the way down on the cylinder block. So we're just looking for excessive gaps, things caught in the joint. I think it's good. These new head bolts are supposed to be oiled just a little bit, and they're installed. This is just engine oil, same kind of oil you'd use anywhere else in your motor. We're going to install them just finger tight to start with. Bolt number 1. 29 foot-pounds. 29 foot-pounds. 4. If you don't want all this work to be for nothing, you better follow this procedure. So your head may warp.
Designed to help businesses.com/NPR. Every purchase. Financial LLC. And from
this is an old wrench, American-made Craftsman. 51, and then we do the same thing over again.
These days, it's not enough to know that something happened. That's why Morning Edition, all things considered, in our local newsroom bring you
72.3. We might call it 73 because I don't know if that's a spec that's on my wrench. 72.
Citing the 800,000 people in the U.S. who have already died.
72.5. We'll go to that.
The Prime Minister of the
Number
Netherlands
one.
announced today that country will go into a new tight lockdown starting tomorrow. Omicron
Number 2.
is bringing a fifth wave of COVID-19. The variant is also spreading in Britain, which is reporting a record high number of COVID infections.
All right, that's everything torqued with the antique Craftsman torque wrench. All right, I got the water system put back together, the cross pipes installed, the EGR valve is in, so now it's time to try and squeeze this exhaust manifold in. This might be tricky. All right. Phew. I cannot see the downpipe for the exhaust manifold, so I have to kind of feel to get those 3 bolts that hold the manifold to the downpipe in. And then you gotta kind of push down on the manifold until it pops these top bolts in. Not as tricky as I thought it would be. But I'm trying to make sure I don't have, again, wires and whatnot caught in my joints, because I can't see anything on that side of the motor. Yeah, alright. So the weatherman got it wrong. Apparently it's gonna rain all day. It wasn't supposed to rain at all. Here's my trick for getting this timing belt tensioner back in. When you take it off, this plunger is going to pop out. It's got a massive spring behind it. Very difficult. You're not going to be able to push that back in with your hands unless you're just much more manly than I am. So I use this clamp and I compress it. And you see that hole? We have to put something in that hole to keep it from coming back out for when we reassemble all this. When you buy a new one, that'll have a pin in it with a ring on it. A lot of people affectionately call that the grenade pin. I don't have that. So what I'm doing is using this clamp for carpentry work. I'm gonna try and put this tiny little drill bit in it and see if that thing will hold. It might snap like a toothpick. It held enough. Hopefully it'll hold long enough for us to get this thing put back in. And this is the original timing belt that I'm taking off. You can see it's starting to get some cracks here and there. This is probably completely factory original. I don't actually know. So got the water jacket system put back together, the cross pipes installed, the exhaust manifold is in, at least on top it is. Next thing I want to do is this water pump. We're going to save the intake manifold for last. The water pump on this car is driven off of the timing belt. This is my new water pump, by the way. I'm going to set it up here, set my bolts in it as I take them out. Transferring all those bolts over to my new water pump, I know I've got all the bolts out. The biggest tool I have out here is the giant screwdriver, and somehow I keep losing it. You would think this would be the difficult one to lose. Boom. There's our water pump loose. Will it come off? Oh, there's a dowel pin down there holding the bottom of that. There it is, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with this water pump. It's just, it's got 1,000,000 miles on it, so this seems like the right time to do it. And that is the original factory Honda water pump. Wow, is that like dead bugs and crap in my water system? Look at that. It's like a bee or something inside my water system. That's crazy. This part is Asian. How do you say that? I'd love to have a factory Honda one, but you know, this job's getting expensive. All right, there's our water pump. Start putting bolts in. Gotta say, I'm liking this little cheese ball wrench. This is where it's just handy. Now the timing belt tensioner. And I'll show you how that plays in with that spring-loaded piece in a minute. Basically, that spring piece pushes against this and keeps your tension on your timing belt. So, you know, it's got to have a hell of a lot of force to be able to do that properly. A lot of places will recommend that you replace the tensioner, that idler, all this other stuff while you're in here. These pieces are actually in pretty good shape. I am fully qualified to diagnose a bad bearing, and none of those bearings are bad. We're just doing the timing belt on this car. It's really not hard to do. So if I have to replace one of these, I'm not that worried about it. Make sure that turns freely, pivots freely, not binding up, not got a lot of slop in it. That's what we're looking for. All right, now let's put our timing belt on. Timing belt go down to hold. Just double check myself. Check it out, I'm old school. I could look up stuff on my 10,000 phones I've got out here, but I've still got the book out. It's not even a factory book, it's a cheese ball, Haynes. This goes over that tensioner. Well, that's actually an idler, that's not a tensioner. And as I'm told, you want 0, 0, 0 slack over here. Our water pump pulley and around this top cam. Now, put the tensioner back in and we should be good to go. All right, let me show you this. I'm jumping around on this because, well, I gotta get done. When I got everything together, I found out that I was a tooth off on this rear cam. It's one tooth off. So I took the tensioner back off, just the pulley. Advance the cam to where my marks line up correctly. Now I'm going to put it back on. Got to take the time and do this right. And all I did to advance the cam was pull a little slack in the belt, put my 17mm wrench on there and turn it till the marks lined up, then match these teeth back up. And I'll do this as many times as necessary to get this thing right, because if I don't, when I try and start this car, it is going to sound worse than when I started. And that would suck. That would be the aim. It's getting dark. It's rained all day. I'm soaking wet. But the head's on, the exhaust manifold's on, the water jacket's put back together, the new water pump's installed, the timing belt's on. So we got a lot of progress today. Feeling good for day 5. 5. Hit it again tomorrow. New valve cover seals going in. I'll go ahead and show you where we are. Got the intake put back together up to the fuel injectors. Got the head on and all that good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and finish building up the top. It's about 35 degrees out this morning. Got the air intake going. Now it's time to hook up the throttle body. We're gonna move on to closing up the timing set, putting the accessories back on. Also went ahead and ordered the passenger side motor mount because, you know, you can see that one is starting to rip out. Probably not long for this world. Another view of that burnt up valve, broken valve. Crazy. And fast forward a little bit, we've got the airbox back in, the battery back in, but not hooked up. Got to clean all that up first. I'll bet you there's something down there that's not plugged in that should be. I'll know when I fire it up and it starts to cough. Got the plenum vacuum lines hooked up, the brake boosters hooked up. Oh, I do need to move that hose clamp back to where it goes though. The vacuums off of the air box are hooked up. Now it's time to move over here. Putting the timing covers back on. Got the mount for the motor mount in, and this is the sort of stuff you have to be careful with because this piece and the piece that it bolts into are aluminum. They take a great big bolt, 3 great big bolts, 1, 2, 3. And if you over torque those, you will strip it, and then you will have a mess on your hands. Power steering pump's going in, and the motor mount's gonna go on. Good times. Good times. Starting to look like a car again. New motor mount in, everything's in, it's all in. Got some new blue juice in the cooling system. I'll have to fire that up, bleed it. Got the wheel back on, which looks terrible because I've been using it as a stepping stool the whole time I've been working on this. Let's talk about this for a minute. This is a carpet-covered piece of plywood that I use when I have to lay around under the car because otherwise I'd be working in the mud, right? Who wants to do that? So if you don't have a nice garage, if you end up having to work in the yard all the time, make yourself one of these. It's handy. Handy. When I drop a bolt, there it is. When I gotta lay under there I go. This is from our replacement of the head gasket. Hopefully this will eventually go away as all the coolant burns out of the cylinders, and that should burn off. Well, here we are. Got the soldering coffee cup. Just finished replacing the connector that I ripped out earlier. I still don't know what caused this. Got new rear wheel sensors, put those on. Grabbed a couple element parts too. I'll show you those later. Let's fire it up, see what she sounds like. The noise you're hearing is the power steering pump. I've got a kit coming to rebuild the power steering pump so we can get rid of that. I think it's just sucking air off the inlet side. We'll take her for a test drive now, see how she sounds. All right, from a dead stop, let's track the minivan. That's pretty impressive. I don't know, this girl hasn't sounded this good in a long time. It's really made a big difference. It's shifting smoother, probably because those motor mounts were destroyed. You saw them. I've also got some gaskets coming for the water system on the part of it that's under the intake. It's part of the water jacket for the heads. Something in there is leaking, so I need to track that down and figure it out. It's not a big leak, but it does drip a little bit here and there. So what do you think about that head? Is that burnt or is it just busted? And what is this crap on the valves? Is that just carbon? What is that? Let's see if I can get that valve to open. Maybe that'll shed some light on the subject. There. All right, now it's open. Let's get a better look at that. Does that look burnt or just cracked off to you? Kinda, I don't know, it's hard to tell. I just can't imagine how this would have cracked off unless it came in contact with the piston. And the fact that the valve next to it appears to be fine makes me question how in the world one valve could hit the piston and the other not. I don't think that's possible. So I'm gonna have to say that I suspect, even though it looks cracked off, I think it has to be burnt. What do you think? You tell me, internet. This ended up being a really long video because we found a lot of stuff. Hope it was entertaining to you. Hope it taught you a couple things. If it did, be sure to like and subscribe.